Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream on this Friday, March 7th, pre-free agency, pre-plenty of activity, but there has already been plenty as well, and that's what we're going to kind of get into throughout the course of the next hour. We're glad you're with us. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. Excited to say that we're coming up on 40 channel members, less than, 48 hours or so since we rolled this whole thing out. So goes without saying, we appreciate the support. We love that you guys want to get more involved. And if you are interested in doing so, go click on that link that we have included as a pinned comment in the live chat. It's also in the show notes. So thanks to all of you. Partner, we've had a great week, and we're about to finish it up with this because, man, there is pure chaos that's exploding around the AFC North and around the Ravens. They haven't exactly partook yet in this chaos. And that'll obviously lead us into topic 2, which kind of goes to this whole Ronnie Stanley conversation, whether or not the panic button should be pressed. Obviously, the legal tampering period begins Monday at noon. Free agency begins on the 12th at 4 Eastern, and it has been really, really quiet. The silence is almost deafening. So we'll discuss that, a number of other things, including a little debate game to finish off on this Friday. And we'll begin with a simple question. Would you trade Mark Andrews for DK Metcalf? And from there, there'll be a couple other topics as well. So great to see you. Let's get off and running.
Let's get off and running. I like the shirt. Looks like a new Florida shirt, maybe. Looking pretty good there. But you're right. There is a lot of chaos in the AFC North. What's funny, it's like the exact opposite in Baltimore. Like, we're seeing nothing. We're hearing nothing out of Owings Mills. But when you talk about, Cincinnati or you talk about Cleveland, there's all sorts of drama going on.
Oh, literally. And I think we should just jump right in because it was this news that got the conversation started yesterday. And you know how many priorities that Cincinnati's ownership has with all the, they got a lot of balls up in the air. And one of them is Trey Hendrickson. And so, as Adam Schefter tweeted yesterday, the Bengals have taken the rare step of granting him permission to seek a trade. Here's the quote that Schefty got from Hendrickson. It's been an honor and privilege to represent Cincinnati over the last 4 years. Of course, this is the NFL's sack leader. I love this city and organization. I appreciate the privilege of now being allowed to explore my options. So, Sarah, this was a defensive group that really was the Achilles heel for Cincinnati, and now they're on the verge of losing their cornerstone piece after yesterday's news came down.
This is kind of a big deal. Because, as we know, the Joe Burrow has been publicly talking about how he wants his team to spend money. And he specifically has said that with T. Higgins, right? So as Ari Mirov of My Sports Update kind of pointed out, he said the Bengals have been prioritizing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, which is leaving no room for Trey Hendrickson. And he's kind of on an island. So he says that while there have been negotiations, they've been far apart. Saying that they've been far apart would be an understatement, according to Ari here. And so, this is not, any small player here. The Bengals are trying to figure out how to keep their quarterback happy, who's demanding that his team spends money. He wants to keep his top 2 wide receivers. Meanwhile, you got, one of their franchise leaders on defense. And by the way, we all know the defense hasn't been good anyway. It's the biggest reason why Joe Burrow put up all these numbers, but they kept losing. And so Mike Tannenbaum kind of unleashed on the Cincinnati Bengals this morning when he was on Get Up, saying that this just isn't a good look that you have a franchise player looking to get out.
Laura Rutledge at the Super Bowl, he talked about in great detail.
Let me rewind that because it wasn't started from the beginning. Start again.
Cincinnati, I am significantly worried about Joe Burrow. He sat down with ESPN and Laura Rutledge at the Super Bowl. He talked about in great detail about what players should get paid, cap numbers and cash flow. And you're attacking T. Higgins, who we're looking at here for the second consecutive year. And Trey Hendrickson, guys, has 35 sacks over the last 2 years. He's 30 years old. He's high character. Those guys never, ever, ever leave your building, ever. And T. Higgins needs to get paid. And if I'm Cincinnati, I'm worrying about, is Joe Burrow all in here?
Woo. He kind of elaborated on that, Bobby, because I was like, what? Absolutely. Trey is like this, like I said, franchise player. 35 sacks in the last 2 years, only 30 years old. He's got plenty left. We've seen pass rushers play well beyond 30. We're seeing it with Kyle Van Noy right now. I mean, my goodness. So why does he ask the question, is Joe Burrow really all in? And he went on to talk about that. And he said, listen, players watch how the front office treats the players that they drafted and have become staples to their teams, right? He said, you can't keep all your guys. Some guys you're going to lose. You can't keep them all. But he's saying that Joe Burrow's watching and he'll see other teams, whether it's the Eagles or the Ravens or somebody else. Not that the either of those teams are perfect. The Ravens aren't perfect, but for the most part, they treat their guys well that they've drafted. The critique in Baltimore is pay more of other people's guys and bring in talent. But the Ravens, their strategy is like, listen, we drafted you. You play well on that rookie contract. We're going to take care of you. That happened with Mark Andrews. That happened with Marlon Humphrey. That happened with Lamar Jackson. That happened with a number of people. And so he's saying when Joe Burrow looks at that and you see other teams paying their top guys, then he's like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? And so now Tannenbaum's bringing up the idea, is Joe Burrow going to be all in, because he's already publicly telling them to spend money?
Well, you'd be spending money on somebody that has been nothing short of excellent for you. You've named a few of the sack statistics. I mean, how about this? Just from 2024 alone, he ranked third in pressure percentage, first in sacks and sack percentage, and third in pass rush win rate. You go back to 2023, these are statistics that were compiled by Louis Riddick, who is not happy about this piece of news. He was seventh in pressure percentage in 23. He was tied for second in sacks and number one in sack percentage. And he was 11th in pass rush win rate. And by the way, on top of that, this dude has been nothing short of durable for you as well. He hasn't missed a game or a start the past 2 seasons, and he's played over 72% of snaps last season and over 67% of your snaps in 2023. So yeah, to your point there, and to Tannenbaum's point, what kind of message are you sending if you're letting this kind of, sure, a cornerstone piece, but somebody that epitomizes what it means to be a pro and an impact player on a defense that literally was the sole reason why you didn't play in January?
Right. So some people are like, well, maybe they just feel like, hey, we had Trey Hendrickson and we were really bad, so we're more than one player away. So maybe we can go out and get a king's ransom and then use that in the draft to try to, since we're multiple players away. So that's trying to be, kind of play devil's advocate. But in terms of the Bengals and Joe Burrow, which is what we're talking about here, is it's like, it's one thing to complain and you've already been paid. And so you could go back to and say, Joe, we paid you. We're to the cap limit. But the Bengals don't pay to the cap limit. They don't. And so that's part of his gripe is it's like, yeah, you've paid me, but we still have room. Sometimes it's like, are restructures even needed? Because the Bengals frequently do not even come close to hitting that cap hit.
So Hendrickson might be on his way out the building, or at least they're leaving themselves susceptible to the potential of that happening. T. Higgins is ticked off about a second consecutive franchise tag. You got to pay Jamar Chase at some point. Joe Burrow's made it clear, like you mentioned, and we've mentioned several times this offseason, he's been outspoken about what he thinks the team's priorities should be. There's a lot going on in Cincinnati right now, Sarah, and this wasn't a playoff team. Just to reiterate that, this was not a postseason team a year ago. They're flirting with, I don't know about disaster, but they're flirting with something here. And if I'm the Ravens, I'm just kind of sitting back, and I know it's been radio silent. We'll get to that in just a bit, and they got their own dominoes that they got to figure out before they start falling.
Bobby, according to Spot Rack, which I'm not sure is completely accurate, but it's going to be close-ish. They have $52 million in cap space right now. $52 million. Now, some other people have him estimated closer to 40, but that's still, if you had 40 million and your franchise defensive, like the face of your defense is like, you're not going to pay me, and you got 40 million. And that's with T. Higgins cap hit already on there with the franchise tag.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. But to your point, that's good news for the Ravens. It's good news to see your opposition not being able to retain their players or having a hard time figuring out making everybody happy. And that's happening also in Cleveland. So a couple hours before we came on air this afternoon, news broke from Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network saying that Myles Garrett recently requested a meeting with Browns owner Jimmy Haslam. Bobby, Haslam declined to speak to Garrett about his trade request, according to Tom's sources. Tom goes on to say that both sides are dug in. Cleveland refuses to even discuss a trade. And I'm listening to insiders all over in the national media, Bobby. They're all saying the same thing. Like whether it's publicly, like this isn't like a public, haha, we're not going to trade him, but behind doors, we'll talk to you. No, publicly, behind closed doors, like they're shutting it down every which way, not trading him. Meanwhile, and here's the other news, Bobby. Tom Pelissero reporting that Garrett is preparing to miss games if he's not traded. I've been wondering, is he going to do that? Is that where this is headed? And now that's the news. Garrett's ready to sit out. Oh, okay. That sounds great to me. Lamar Jackson coming to town and Myles Garrett's taking up a significant portion of your cap space and he's refusing to play. Hey, the only thing worse, there's no way the Ravens could trade for him, A, because he's division, B, because they're not trading him. But it's like if the Ravens can't get him, the next best thing is like send him to the NFC. The next best thing is fine, leave him with the Browns because the Browns aren't a major threat. The next best thing, or the best of it all, is keep him with the Browns and he doesn't play. Oh, yeah. Keep both sides dug in. That is great news for the Ravens.
It's chaos. And the end of this tweet here that you just referenced, the fact that Pelissero says Myles is absolutely preparing to miss games if he's not traded, I think goes along well paired with Aditi's tweet for some context. And here's what she had to say earlier today. When Myles Garrett was playing through injuries to both feet, a thigh and an Achilles this year, he told our NFL on CBS crew how bothered he was that certain Browns teammates weren't giving better energy. He said he'd called out offensive teammates for their body language. And when I asked why, if he was so irritated, he didn't just have surgery. He said, quote, I want to win. This is my purpose until it's not, which is to say, again, more from Aditi here. One, this has been brewing and isn't only about the quarterback, meaning Deshaun or lack thereof right now. Their plan is up in the air. And two, I may not know another superstar, Aditi says, who could so quickly pivot to another, quote, purpose, to use his wording from that meeting with CBS. Thank you, Laura Roten, for becoming a channel member. Garrett has never defined himself solely by football. In a game of chicken, this is a man who could easily go write anime or live abroad until he gets his way. So just kind of pairs nicely with the end of what Tom's hearing. And Sarah, if I'm the Browns, look, you may feel like you have leverage because of the contract situation, but this is one of the best players in the game, and he ain't afraid to not show up if this doesn't get solved.
Again, that would be great news for the Ravens.
Yes.
And Bobby, part of the reason why they're dug in on on Cleveland's side is, as was reported, the Browns reluctantly converted $44.7 million of Deshaun Watson's 2025 salary into a signing bonus, creating $35 million of cap space. But all it does is push it, and they're going to have, so his cap hit this in 2025 will be $36 million, $81 million in 2026, and then $53 million as a void year in 2027. He's not going to be on their roster in 2027, and he's already going to cost $54 million, maybe more if they keep doing this, right?
And he may have played Right. And he may have played his last down as a Brown.
Right. And then so with Myles Garrett, they would just lose out on $36 million if they traded him at least before June. So that's $36 million that won't be used on Deshaun Watson. That's just dead because he's likely not going to play in 2025. And then if you traded Myles Garrett, that's another $36 million. So we're almost it's like 70, 75 million here on players that are saying, one saying, I'm not playing for you, I'll sit out games. And the other one's like, just can't play.
Yeah. Well, they're in a predicament, all right. And Spot Rack quote tweeted the one that we just had up on the screen, kind of detailing that conversion and whatnot. And he asked, will the Browns be willing to take on $135.4 million of dead cap, which is $46 million in cash next offseason to move on from Deshaun Watson? Even as a post-June 1 move, the numbers would be historic.
Oof.
So,
Bobby,
look,
I want to go back to finish your thought there.
I was just going to throw out there that obviously they're at number 2 right now. If they're not in love with one of these quarterbacks, if whether it's Cam, Shador, anybody else in this year's draft, should we not rule out as Sod Blitz becomes a new member on top of yesterday's super chats? We love you, Sod, and we got to get to the first channel member as well as a shout out in just a bit, which we will. But so I don't lose my train of thought.
Keep going.
Could we not rule out the potential scenario of if they're not in love with one of these rookie quarterbacks, they go the bridge route, the bridge quarterback route, whether it's a Daniel Jones, an Aaron Rodgers, trade for Kirk Cousins, whatever it might be, with the idea of using Deshaun next year because of what you owe him. And then he becomes the bridge next for 2026.
Oh, Deshaun becomes the bridge in 2026.
Right. Because of, and you're solely basing that off of, well, sure, his rehab, and I don't know where that is with the Achilles and whatnot. But clearly he's not going to be ready for this year.
So just to get this straight, you're just putting out the idea that they have a bridge in 2025 to get to the second bridge in 2026?
Solely based on what you owe Deshaun in 2026, you might as well get something out of the guy.
Well, I don't know. Part of me would just be like, cut it loose. This is we've ruined ourselves so far. Like, why shoot ourselves in the foot by not bringing in, a rookie or whatever? I don't know.
Just move on. No, I hear you. But the only reason I'm bringing it up is because of the unique nature of this deal and what they're on the hook for. So,
oh my God.
So yeah, are you guys seeing what we're talking about here? It's utter chaos within this division, most of which is happening between Cincinnati and Cleveland. Pittsburgh obviously has its own issues to figure out in terms of replacing Najee Harris at running back. Who's going to be under center for them? Will it be Russell Wilson? Will it be Justin Fields? But Sarah, as we continue to kind of say, if you're the Ravens, hey. Let's go extend Ronnie Stanley and kick our feet up and do what we do best, and that's draft.
Let's get to Ronnie Stanley here in a second. Let me add a little bit more because, Bobby, we haven't even touched on this part yet, which adds to the chaos, which is the fact that the owner declined to speak with the face of his franchise. Okay. Why? Why is the question? Well, Garofolo on NFL Network spoke to just giving from his sources, giving the side of the Browns front office and Jimmy Haslam and why he said, nah, I'm not talking to you.
Myles Garrett, we know he wants to trade. He's made that clear. Not about money. It's about playing for a competitive team. Does not feel right now the Browns are in that situation. The Browns have made it clear, publicly, privately, we are not trading this guy. He is not going anywhere. Andrew Berry telling me at the Combine, a future in which Myles Garrett is not playing for the Browns. That's not a future that we want to be in. So here's what happened. Garrett reached out to Jimmy Haslam, requested a meeting with the owner, according to Tom Pelissero's sources, and Haslam said no. Now, my understanding is the reason that Haslam said no here is we know what the issues are. We know about the communication between your agent and Andrew Berry, our general manager, and our organization, the communication both sides. You need to go to Andrew Berry on this. And Haslam does, full trust in Berry to handle this situation, and basically redirected Garrett and his agent to Berry in this situation, saying, you're not going to go around the general manager and come to me to get this thing done. So this one is going to be a standoff. That's going to take a while. We've been saying that from the beginning. This is something that could last through the spring, into the summer, perhaps into the regular season. We'll see where it goes. But the Browns have made it clear they're not interested in trading Myles Garrett. They're not interested in having conversations about trading Myles Garrett with other teams. And Jimmy Haslam's not interested in having a conversation with Garrett about the situation that doesn't include the general manager, Andrew Berry. So.
What a mess. Bobby, Kyle Brandt had a great analogy. He's like, so is this a situation where like you're asking to talk to the CEO as an employee and he's saying, nah, you talk to your district manager? Or is this a situation where, you know, you go to your mom says no, so you try to go around your mom and go to your dad? And then, you know, he's trying to get the answer that he wants. Now, I'll say this. I appreciate when a manager doesn't undercut you, right? So if you're Andrew Berry, you certainly don't want your owner to undercut you. I can appreciate that. But like, I have no problem if I say no to my kid that they go to dad. And do you want to know why? Because me and dad are on the same page. Yeah. If I haven't communicated with dad and we just didn't know, then like that's one thing. I'd be like, oh, my bad. I should have told you, right? If I believed my husband was going to undercut me, then we might have a problem, right? But it's like, hey, mom, can I have, you know, can I go here tonight? And I say no, and I've already talked to my husband. Oh, I'm going to go ask dad. Feel free. Go talk to dad. Go have a conversation with your father. You can talk to your father. I'm not going to stop you from talking to your father, right? Because I know me and dad are on the same page. And if we're not on the same page, then we got to go and meet, and we got to get on the same page,
sure.
Okay? So I can appreciate that, you know, Haslam might not want to like undercut his GM, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you're on the same page as your GM, talk to your franchise player.
For sure.
Talk to him. Do anything you can to massage this and say, hey, I'm with Andrew. What can we do to make this work? And just say the same things that Andrew Berry says. There's no like, but just cutting him off, that's not a good look. And I don't think it's going to work.
I hope Mr. Haslam knows this isn't some employee of the month. This is an employee of the year. Yeah. This is an employee of the decade.
This is an intern.
No.
This is an intern.
We're talking about a perennial defensive player of the year candidate that's been in your building from the jump. You've put him through an immense amount of dysfunction, and now you won't even have a conversation in the midst of essentially a contract stalemate or a contract holdout, or not a holdout, but a standoff, let's call it. Like, yeah, not a great look. And yet again, reason number, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, countless, why the Ravens are just kind of sitting back and letting this all come to fruition around them. So that is a look at the AFC North.
Yeah, and I'll just say this because we're about to transition into the Ravens, where there's been radio silence on the free agency front. But the Ravens have their problems. We're going to discuss them. We're going to lead with Ronnie Stanley, obviously. Or they have, I don't know if it's a problem yet. It looks like it could be. Who knows? The clock is winding down. But it's kind of one of those situations where it's like you have problems, but then when you look at some other people's problems, you're like, okay, I'll take my problems, right? Oh, yeah. I do not want the Browns or the Bengals problems. Do not bring those. We'll deal with our problems in Baltimore. We'll take ours over yours for sure.
Well, they feel insignificant compared to Baltimore's peers. Let's get to a couple super chats and shout out our new members as well before we shift gears to Ronnie. Laura not only became a new member about 10 minutes ago, but also dropped in a $20 super chat, which we appreciate. Happy Friday to you, Laura. And she writes, love you guys so much and wanted to talk with you about some business contributions. Oh. Appreciate that, Laura. If it's outside of what you're referring to right here, which is just the channel membership that you signed up for and the super chat, you know how to find us, BaltimoreRavensVault at gmail.com. Thank you so much. And just a shout out to Sod Blitz and a shout out to our first member of the day, which came in at 4:53 in the morning. I would imagine there's a time difference on that. Hopefully I don't botch this new channel member's name, but it's got to be either with the accent, Sarah, I'd have to think it's Racine.
Yeah, I would put the syllable, the emphasis on the syllable on the E because you've got the accent there. Yeah.
So Racine. Racine. Hopefully it's one of those, but we appreciate you guys. I believe we now have over 40 members. So thanks for the early support in terms of our channel memberships that we rolled out earlier this week. There are over 1,800 of you concurrently joining us on this Friday, Tila. Thank you for being here. Like the video if you haven't already done so on your way in. subscribe, hit that notification bell. It's time to talk about the biggest domino, Sarah, in Baltimore that is yet to fall, and that is one Ronnie Stanley.
Ronnie Stanley. Here's what's so crazy, Bobby, is here we are on Friday, and the legal tampering window opens on Wednesday. We have heard
Monday
nothing.
At noon, correct?
What did I say? Monday at noon. Wednesdays when free agency opens, legal tampering opens on Monday, meaning he can talk to anybody and everybody, and like you're going to see on Monday deals being announced. Not that they're done, but they're going to be announced. Will be become finalized on Wednesday when the official new league year opens. So we're going to see that. We haven't heard anything. Like there's no reports on it either. Like there's reports coming out from other teams. Like the Athletic reported on what the Chiefs want to do and they want to target him. We've seen Boston Globe writers talk about the Pats and how they're going to target him if he hits free agency. But we haven't heard anything out of Baltimore. Nothing. Not since the combine when Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh made it seem like a signing was probable, right? Looked like it might be not 100%, but it seemed like, hey, yeah, his agent's right here. We're in the combine together. It just made it seem like it was happening. So nobody's reporting on it from like a traditional news source like the Athletic or the Baltimore Sun or ESPN. But our guy Cole Jackson says he's been talking on the streets. So he's heard things on the street. So this is all we've got. Okay, here's what Cole said. He said, things I know. The Ravens want Ronnie. Ronnie wants the Ravens. And if Ronnie hits the open market, he'll be gone. And that is for sure true. We get to Monday at noon. The Ravens are not in a position to get into a bidding war over Ronnie Stanley. Now's the time when you bid, not when other bidders get in on the action. At noon on Monday, if he's not locked in, he's likely gone. Cole says, simply put, the Ravens can't let Ronnie hit the market, pay up and get it done, period. He also says this based off of some questions he got. Cole says, one thing I've heard from a few separate people is that there's a really good relationship between Ronnie and the Ravens due to their patience with his rehab process. So we've talked about how Ronnie took a pay cut last year, right? Does that hurt the relationship? Well, no, according to Cole, because there's still a lot of goodwill with the way the Ravens stuck by him while he rehabbed. And remember, he signed on a Friday and was injured on Sunday. And then,
and also remember too, not to cut you off there, it was only a couple summers ago where I can remember John Harbaugh being sick and tired of being asked about this question. What is Ronnie's status? And he was kind of giving some prickly mid-training camp types of answers in terms of, hey, it's on Ronnie's timeline. And so with all of that in mind, I think this is a great observation in terms of the conversations that Cole has had, because they were really patient with him. And I'm sure Ronnie had to Ronnie exemplified patience throughout this process and then bet on himself, and look what the position he's in now. The high, if not the most coveted, one of the most coveted free agents ahead of next week.
Oh, he absolutely is. He absolutely is. So according to Cole and what he's hearing, both sides still want to get it done. So I don't know what the hang up is. Maybe they have it. Maybe they're already set to go and they're just waiting for the deadline to announce it. Maybe they announce it Monday morning. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like they need to wait that long. It doesn't seem like they should have to wait that long. So, it's fair if some people are getting a little antsy, right? A little antsy. And you know what, Bobby, on Good Morning Football this morning, they had a little exercise of asking, who are your top free agents about to hit the market? And Kyle Brandt had this. He had at number 5, Sam Darnold, which is a quarterback. So, number 5, Devontae Adams at number 4, Josh Sweat at number 3, Nick Bolton at number 2, and then he's got Ronnie Stanley at number 1. And here's what he had to say about that.
And that just leaves one. You know me, I don't go for the headlines. I go for the O-lines. Ronnie Stanley is the number 1 for me. This is a one-time, first team All-Pro. This is a guy who has been to the Pro Bowl this year. This is a left tackle in a league that is starving for them. He has Lamar's blind side. He is ready to have your quarterback's blind side. He is intelligent. He is experienced. He is huge. I'm surprised that he is even available out there for the right bidder. Quarterback, wide receiver, pass rusher, linebacker, and offensive tackle guy.
All right. He says, in a league where you're starving for offensive tackles, and now a former All-Pro is about to hit it, he's like, I'm shocked that I'm even talking about him being available. Well, we got 3 days left, so technically he's not available. But I too will be shocked if he's available on Monday, and just be extremely curious what happened when they were so confident at the combine. So again, 3 days still to go, but I think it's fair to be a little bit antsy.
Totally fair. What you got here on the salary cap?
Well, real quick here. So kind of bringing it into this. It's so interesting because it's not just Ronnie Stanley that we're waiting news on, although that is one piece, right? CBS Sports put out kind of in tiers teams and their spending ability as we enter free agency. We know, according to Brian McFarland, who's the best at the Ravens salary cap, the Ravens have about $10.5 million as we sit today. We're talking about the effective money that the Ravens have. They're actually in the hole by $12 million. What do I mean by $12 million? Well, they're going to have to pay their 11 draft picks. They're going to have to pay a practice squad. They're going to have an injury slush fund, which is usually about $6 million when they head into the season for the inevitable injuries, and you got to go trade for somebody, all that kind of stuff. So really, they're in the hole in terms of money they actually have. Now, they can open up a lot of money in a lot of different ways. But right now, with where they stand, they're in the second to bottom tier compared to the rest of the league with how much cap money they have to work with at the present moment. They're on that second to bottom tier with the Texans and the Tampa Bay Bucks. The other teams that are over the cap right now, it's the Dolphins, the Saints. The Saints are paying for all those years that they went over. They've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
The Dolphins, Saints, Browns, Deshaun Watson, Chiefs, Bills, and the Falcons. They're all over the cap. The Ravens are just barely above that with not being over the cap. But here's what's so funny about the radio silence, and it's not just about Ronnie Stanley. It's the fact that it's kind of small here, but Brian McFarland has all the names of the players and moves that they could do to create money, and they will be doing it with some, if not the majority of these. Like, here we are on Friday when everybody else is announcing their cap casualties, and Arthur Mollett is still on the team, right? No extension for Derrick Henry yet. Lamar Jackson, is there going to be an extension or restriction? I didn't really expect that to happen by now anyway, but that's there. No Marlon Humphrey extension yet. Mark Andrews, you're going to do an extension? You're going to stand by him? There's no, I mean, I can't remember the date. There was when he gets his bonus. It's after the time that the new league year opens, but only a couple days. It's sometime next week. So maybe they're waiting for that.
March.
Yeah, maybe they're waiting for that deadline.
Maybe 16, somewhere around there.
I don't know if they're really going to do anything with Roquan Smith. They'd already restructured him a few times. Nnamdi Madubuike. You could still extend Odafe Owe. Justin Tucker. Like so all of these potential moves. And here's the funny thing, Bobby, if we can go back to our faces on here.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I keep, refreshing my X feed, my X/Twitter feed, because news could come down the pike at any moment. And, given what we do, we don't want to miss it. But here's what's funny to me is some of the posts that have been on Twitter lately. And I don't blame them, but I'm like, ooh, because I've got notifications set up. I'm like, okay, notification. And then they had, Ray Lewis doing his squirrel dance coming up. Sashi Brown participated in a Read Across America week, The two Mitchell, the son and the father with their jerseys, which is really cool, right? Really cool, but not what we're.
It's all great. I mean, it's good stuff. Community work, father-son stuff, the GOAT, but none of which anybody wants to see right now.
Here's the Under Armour announcement of the high school. Like, really cool stuff for grant to the youth sports.
Yeah.
There's an ad there. And then this morning, helping kids build libraries, like all really good community stuff that we cheer on. But it's like the timing when I'm like, is like Ronnie done yet? Is there a cap casualty? Are they going to announce an extension? Like none of it. Yeah. But I am glad that Sashi's reading, with the kids, because that is important. It's not what we want to do right now.
A lot of teasers. If you have your notifications on, there's been a hefty amount of teasers sent to your phones. So hang in there. Friday afternoon news dump is still on the table.
Again, news dump implies, you use that a lot. News dump implies that you're trying to hide news. With Ronnie Stanley, you're not trying to hide that.
You're not trying to hide anything, no.
But maybe they do want to do a news dump on the cap casualties.
And what if the timing just ends up working out? What if these negotiations are active right now?
Right.
So the news dump is, from a PR perspective. But let's get to some super chats here before we play a little game.
A little good idea, bad idea game.
Devin just hits us with a $4.99. We appreciate you, Dev. Hopefully it's not Devon. If it is, my bad. Nate Campbell showing us some love. Told all my friends and family I was famous after Bobby shouted me out yesterday. Love you guys in the content. I loved your comment yesterday. It wasn't even a super chat, and I thought it fit. I think it was related to Ronnie Stanley, if I'm not mistaken, and the way that others perceive him in the market. That's what it was, wasn't it, Nate? So appreciate the super chat. Evan became a member. What's up, Ev? The DC's finest chef, by the way. Kobe Pruitt, and he's a total troll, too. He knows that. He texted me this week, and I was like, you're a troll, Evan, right? Yes, you're a troll. Kobe hits us with, I think we are entering the stage of the quarterback era where teams are experiencing the crunch of paying quarterbacks so much of the cap. Teams that have given average to good quarterbacks top dollar are in big trouble. And we are fully caught up. We appreciate you, Kobe. Thanks to all of you, including our new channel members. And that now brings us to a little good idea, bad idea game. We got 3 scenarios, 3 potentials to go back and forth on, beginning with, Sarah, something that we spent a good deal debating yesterday, and that is this. Good idea or bad idea? Trading Mark Andrews for DK Metcalf. I'll let you begin.
Okay. Well, yesterday we just mostly talked about having DK Metcalf and if he'd be a fit. I don't think we specifically said, would we trade Mark Andrews for DK Metcalf? So good time to go ahead and revisit that. So in the chat, give us your thoughts on each of these, good idea or bad idea. And you can feel free to add a scenario that we'd be happy to answer. So good idea or bad idea, trade Mark Andrews for DK Metcalf. I'll say this, Bobby, in a vacuum for 2025. I say it's a good idea. It's a good idea. And here's why. Let's bring up some of their money, okay, just so we can understand what the difference is between these guys, because I'm speaking specifically to 2025. I understand that DK Metcalf is also looking for $30 million per year. But in my mind, I can put that off, okay? And the reason why, let me share my screen here. Let me start with Mark Andrews, who had a great year. Okay. I wish that this was not so far out and I had more time to grab this stuff as a slide, but it is what it is. Okay. So Mark Andrews, 55 receptions, 673 yards, 11 touchdowns. Great season from Mark Andrews, a resurgent season.
And a resurgent second half after a very slow first half statistically, which I think needs to be mentioned when you look at those numbers specifically.
Say that again.
And a resurgent second half because of the slow start, which I think makes those which can
you
be
think
deceiving.
The numbers are better.
Those numbers that you just pulled up can be deceiving when you consider the fact that he probably wasn't fully healthy. He had the car accident at the beginning of the year or at the end of training camp, and I think all that played a role on top of just how many mouths that Todd Monken had to feed, and yet he still finishes with a single season best in touchdowns. So anyway, just context to the numbers.
Yes, absolutely. For sure, the numbers even better than they look, given what you're saying with the injury. Obviously, the postseason is a different story. DK Metcalf had more yards, but also had more receptions, had fewer touchdowns. Now, Ravens, of course, number 1 in the league in the red zone, right? Number 1 in the league. And so, could you interchange that? If you've got Lamar in there and people are worried about Lamar and they're worried about Derek and Zay and, likely and all that kind of stuff, could he do more in this offense? Could he hit double digits? I think so in this offense, but this is what he did last year. Okay. Now let's look at the money. Let's move that. Let's present the money for again, 2025 is what I'm looking at. I'm going to put the $30 million that is reported that he wants to the side for a second. So here is DK Metcalf. Okay, let's bring this up. Okay, because you're looking at base salary, you do not look at his cap hit because the cap hit is what he's already been paid plus his base salary. It's his signing bonuses plus his base salary. His base salary is $18 million. I understand that's a lot. That is a lot. Now, whereas right now you're spending $17 million as a cap hit for the Ravens with Mark. You don't just look at his base salary, right? Because you're already paying this. Your cap hit for Mark Andrews would be $17 million. The cap hit with his base for DK Metcalf would be $18 million. Now, if you're trading Mark, you do still have to pay for the dead cap. So you would still have $6 million of dead cap. So you're paying the basically the 18 plus the 6. So it's a lot. And I understand that. It's a lot. For me, Bobby, because I keep seeing the Ravens falling short. I keep seeing them fall short in the postseason. And you can go to every single postseason and give a different reason why. But I want somebody who I know doesn't have issues in the postseason, which Mark Andrews has shown beyond just the divisional game in Buffalo. But those were obviously the most recent and the most flagrant. Okay. And behind him, you have Isaiah Likely as the next tight end in waiting, who you're probably going to sign to an extension after this year. And then you enter DK Metcalf, and so you have less 2 tight end sets, and you go more with 3 wide receivers. That is a very complete team with a player at a position that your own general manager has said time and time again, we haven't been able to hit on that ever. And now he's actually available. And so you are paying a little bit more in 2025, but you don't have to commit to the $30 million. And the other thing is, it's not like you're wasting it away, because with Mark Andrews, the best you're going to get out of him if you keep him this year and you just let him walk for free, you're going to get a 2027, maybe 4th round comp pick for him. Whereas in this scenario, you're getting DK Metcalf for a year and maybe more depending on how things work out. So 2027 4th round draft pick, comp pick, if you keep Andrews and then let him walk, or a chance with DK Metcalf, and you're paying about $6 million more than you would have. You can find the money. You can find it. You know how Lamar Jackson feels about him. I want to see some fresh faces in the postseason to help us get over the hump. My confidence in Mark Andrews took a hit in big moments. So for me, it's a good idea. What say you?
We know how Lamar feels about Mark as well.
Mm-hmm.
We talked yesterday about the tweet that you just referenced. We certainly know how he feels about DK Metcalf. And I think we all would agree that DK Metcalf is a heck of a specimen, heck of a player. Probably not going to surprise anybody that I'm out on this idea based on what we discussed yesterday. To me, I have not lost faith in Mark, and I don't think Lamar has either. Everything you laid out makes sense to me, and they could absolutely make this happen. I do want to look at it from a Seattle perspective, though, for a second, because we've seen these reports that not only does DK want a new extension, but Seattle wants a first and a third for him. Now, I don't know if they're getting that. That's pretty lofty.
Right.
A first and a third.
And so reporters were all like, and Josina, I mean, all national reporters who they're talking to other GMs, they're like, they're going to get at best a third rounder. And so to me, Mark Andrews might be around that, a third or fourth rounder.
That's what I was trying to figure out at this point in his career, given the injury history, given the age. Is that a fair comp? Because would Seattle say, no, we want Mark and a day 3 pick?
Well, I'm comfortable with Mark in like a 7th or 6th rounder, if that's what they're asking for. But it's really close in value. I mean, we've talked about it. Like Mark is again, if he's worth a 4th round comp pick in 2027, then because it's earlier, maybe he is worth a third. But it's right in there in the third or 4th round.
Sure.
And it's what reporters, not what the team, is saying that they're likely going to get based off of talking to GMs across the league.
Yeah. So going back to what I said yesterday in terms of why, just in case you guys missed it, why I feel like this has a bad idea written all over it. I think the Ravens have what they need. It has not gotten them to where they want to be yet for different reasons, for reasons that we've cited, whether it be player execution or lack thereof, whether it be abandoning the run from a play calling strategy standpoint 2 years ago. But to me, they have the horses in their building, and the way that they're compact, as long as they can find a way to mirror what they do to teams. They run teams out of the building all throughout the regular season, and that has not yet translated consistently to the month of January. I think they're going to find that. They're going to find a way to do that. They're going to retool in the areas that are necessary this offseason, both through the draft and free agency. We know what those areas are. They need a Brandon Stevens replacement. They need help and depth along, well, maybe not depth, but they need a little bit of help when it comes to the edge and pass rushing. They need to figure out what they're doing at guard. They need to figure out what's going on with Ronnie Stanley's contract, and they need to bring in more depth to the wide receiver room in replacing Nelson Aguilar, assuming that he's no longer going to be here. So to me, I think the solution is outside of the DK Metcalf exercise that we're doing. And to be quite honest with you, I think the solution is in-house right now. It's up to them to look in the mirror and figure out how they're going to solve what they have not yet been able to throughout this era.
What is in-house that you're projecting is solving it?
Exactly what we spent a lot of this offseason discussing with people like Josina and others. How will pressure management, how will we get over the hump? How are we going to look internally, inside, in the mirror and figure out how we're going to get over the hump? I think it's an internal thing. They have all the talent in the world. They've rebuilt their offensive line successfully. They obviously got to retool that. Lamar's under contract for the foreseeable future, which gives them a dang chance every year, no matter who they have in their wide receiver room.
Yeah.
The King's expected to be extended. I'm sticking
your
with it.
answer is pressure management. That's how the Ravens get over the hump. Okay, one other follow-up question from yesterday that I meant to ask yesterday, but I knew that you wanted to move on. When we did our exercise a week or two ago, and we were listing our needs, the Ravens' biggest needs, we both had offensive line first. And then after that, we went in separate ways. What was your number 2 need?
I know I had wide receiver up there. Was it 2 or 3? I can't remember, honestly.
It was one. It might have been 2 or 3. I don't remember where you put pass rusher, but I thought you had it a little bit lower because of the room and all that kind of stuff. So, but that to me runs against. I remember being a little bit surprised that you put receiver so high. Like over cornerback when the Ravens will be losing a 17 starter in Brandon Stevens. Not saying he was a phenomenal player, but the need to find a 17 game starter at cornerback. And so my question to you is when you have wide receiver so high in the Ravens needs, above corner, above pass rusher, above myriad of other needs, why is your response being like, oh, the Ravens don't need an X receiver?
To me, it's mostly what happened availability-wise in the postseason. The fact that they were without 1 and 2. If you had a true number 3 that was pushing Bateman like I believe a Darius Slayton would, then they wouldn't be in a position where you're calling on Anthony Miller to come up from the practice squad. You're signing Steven Sims to sort of try and simulate what Zay does in the backfield. You're using Tylan Wallace. All due respect to Tylan. I don't know if it wouldn't have been such a pressing issue had you had more depth. And so I'll continue to think that is a priority. It's just rounding out the room rather than going the DK route.
Okay. We are on different pages there, but that is no surprise. By the way, I saw a interview with come around that I'm sure has been around, and I have never just heard it. I might be the only one, but it was hilarious to me that DK Metcalf was talking about his diet, and I listened to the whole thing. He doesn't eat. He does 2 workouts, doesn't eat for either one of them. At noon, goes and gets like a coffee at Starbucks, which holds him over to like 4. And then he'll have 3 full bags of candy, which holds him over to like 8 p.m. And then he has dinner, and then he goes to bed.
Can you imagine him and King in the cafeteria together?
I know. Put the King and DK in that same room. I would love to see like them reacting to one another and how they eat. Okay.
You want to lose one second. You want to lose body fat or just be hungry all day, every day? Go hang out with DK and Derek.
What's funny is I actually eat quite a bit of sugar too, but I think you know this, I have McArdle's disease. And so I need it for my muscles, which it's just my muscles can't break down what's stored in there into sugar. And so I have to have high sugar. Go ahead.
Richard's comment.
What do you say?
Yes, and that's a daily part of your life that we probably don't talk about a lot, but that I never lose sight of that. I mean, that's a life-changing thing. But Richard's comment is cracking me up. This is why I hate genetics, he says.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so true. Like it's not even fair. Like, and I've noticed this is like when you get married and you've got in-laws and you look at a whole 2 different families, full body makeup, and it's like, but we all live pretty much the same lifestyles, but we are definitely built differently. Like genetics is massive in this whole thing. All right. Next, good idea or bad idea. This one we might be on the same page as. Good idea or bad idea, Bobby? Pay a king's ransom for either Myles Garrett or Trey Hendrickson, both, as we talked about at the top of the show, AFC North pass rushers that want out. What say you?
Pay a king's ransom. In other words, go against every single thing you're about organizationally, right? Did we have a tweet earlier from Ken McCusick that I thought was a good sort of conversation starter for this? Let me just look back. Here it is. The Ravens' ability to find bargain bin, unrestricted free agent edge talent has never looked more valuable than this week with the Crosby signing. We discussed that yesterday. And the Hendrickson trade request. And I think that's a great way to start this. First of all, shout out Ken. He's the best. They've done exactly that, Sarah, the last couple of years. Eric has taken swings, whether it be in free agency or literally in season in Kyle Van Noy's case in 2023 when they were a few weeks into the season. And how's that worked out for him? Very well in terms of production. Obviously, in January, we've all been left wanting more when it comes to getting to the quarterback. But to me, this would go against, first of all, it's in division. So you'd be not only giving up a king's ransom, but you'd be giving that ransom to one of your division foes. So I'd be out on this. I think this is a bad idea. It's a sexy idea, but I think it's a bad idea.
It's an intriguing idea. It's like, would love either one of them on the edge for the Ravens. But yeah, I think it's a bad idea because first of all, if Myles does not seem available, okay? Like I know we keep living in this world right now. What I'm hoping for, because it's a realistic hope, is that they both dig their heels in and Myles sits out. That's what I want to see. Because then maybe next year they'll go ahead and trade him or cut him or whatever. And then if they cut him, then the Ravens really have a chance to get him, right? So to me, not that I want it for Myles, he's a great guy and I really want him to get a chance to win something, but not at the Ravens' expense. And so to me, what I'm ultimately hoping for this year is that he sits out, because I don't think that the Ravens are going to get him. I don't think they're going to have a chance in Hades to get him. And they would have to go way above. It would have to be a king and a queen's ransom. and their mom and, the prince and princess next. And it's just not going to happen for them to trade him to a division rival like that. Trey Hendrickson, I also don't think the Bengals are going to trade him to the Ravens. So I think that, to Ken's point, there's a lot of good, how about Sweat from the Eagles, who just had 2.5 sacks in the Super Bowl? You don't even have to trade for him. He's about to be out there. Howie's going to let him walk. Howie Roseman, who can pay everybody, according to Ravens fans, he's going to let him walk. Okay, their outside linebacker that sacked Patrick Mahomes 2.5 times in the Super Bowl is about to be out there. There's gonna be we should have another day where we look through all the free agent talent. And not only that, Bobby, not only is there going to be a lot of edge talent as veterans, but that's what's stacked in the draft. So to me, it's the wrong year to be going crazy. I think the Ravens are going to be able to find some solid players at good prices. Not just bargain bin. I think they can get solid answers in the room at pass rusher.
And you know what, too? And I'm just bringing up the available players that are expected to hit the open market at the outside linebacker position, many of whom we've discussed or at least had, a cup of coffee around, like the Joey Bosa's. And I know we've mentioned the Khalil Macks. Look at the familiar face, Matthew Judon in Atlanta, set to hit the open market, and so on and so forth. But you just said something that I think is a great way of putting a bow on this second good idea or bad idea, which we're both lockstep on, which we think it's a bad idea to give up a king's ransom for a Trey Hendrickson or a Myles Garrett. Hit in the draft.
Right.
You have to hit in April. This organization prides itself on the draft, on the compensatory pick formula, on coveting these picks, and deservedly so. They've been the standard in a lot of ways in terms of how you team build through the draft and how you ultimately reward your homegrown players, which is what you've referenced a couple times this week. Hit on the draft. They haven't hit at X, and they have not hit in a long time in terms of that game-wrecking player. I don't know if he's going to be around at 27 unless you're willing to give up picks and move up the board. But you got to hit at some point in the coming Aprils.
Next coming Aprils. I like how you said that. Okay. Let's see here. Getting back to the third and final good idea, bad idea. Bobby, we just learned yesterday via reports that former Ravens cornerback Ronald Darby and former wide receiver / returner Devin Duvernay are expected to be released by the Jags. Okay, here's the news here on Devin Duvernay, and then here's the news on Ronald Darby, who was like a last-minute pickup in training camp a couple years ago and had a pretty good season. So what say you? Good idea or bad idea to reunite with both or one of these guys?
I think it's a good idea to bring back Devin Duvernay, who you drafted. I think you would fortify the void that you're looking to fill when it comes to return specialist. I know you have some candidates that are out there, but Devin is a Pro Bowler. He's an all-pro, matter of fact. He was an all-pro in Baltimore as a return specialist. So I like the idea of that. In terms of Ronald Darby, what a great story he was a couple years ago, like you mentioned. One of the unsung heroes that year. What were we talking about? It was 2023, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. En route to an AFC championship and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I would rather get younger at that position. And if Jeff is right that they're going to keep around Tre'Davious White, then I think that would suffice.
Yeah, I think everything you just said, I agree with. I really liked Ronald Darby that year. I mean, he really did bail the Ravens out with the injuries that they were having in 2023. But he took a significant dip last year, as Ken McCusick pointed out on X. When he was with the Ravens in 2023, he allowed 5.9 yards per target. Pretty good number there. But with the Jags, he allowed 9.8, just under, double. And he turns 31 in January. So, if he's still around in training camp and he can be, a veteran minimum, whatever, maybe. But I would like to see the Ravens try to upgrade for sure. I think the first priority is, I don't want Ronald Darby, like, here's who our new replacement is for Brandon Stevens for 17 games, right? That's not what I'm looking for.
No.
If you're in training camp and injuries hit and you need to be rescued again, like, go ahead and give Ronald a call. But for Kevin, or Devin, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
The Ravens struggled on special teams last year. They struggled in the return game. You could get him for a veteran minimum deal. He'll become your like 5th or 6th wide receiver. You know him already. He knows you. I think that would be a great reunion. The Ravens ponied up for a returner last year. He just was dealing with injuries the whole time and never panned out. So I think the Ravens want to prioritize it, and it seems like he wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
Yeah, you're referring to Deontay Hardy, who just banged up. It's too bad too, because he showed some flash the year prior. I think he was in Buffalo the year prior, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, should we get to some super chats before quick hits?
Yep.
Evan's funny. Troll? Who? Me?
What was he doing?
No. Earlier on when he became a channel member,
okay,
he was cracking me up in the chat because I immediately called him a troll. What a thank you for becoming a member. And then I called him a troll from an offline texting conversation, all in good fun that we were having. And the chat didn't really understand what was going on. So
you and Evan have hit texting buddies. You're like number here. You guys can jab each other a little bit for fun, little pokes.
You want to know why? The reason why was because when I was on no, I haven't met him in person yet, but Evan is a chef in DC. And when I was on my DC date tour this offseason, he was giving me recommendations, one of which was really good. It's my new favorite restaurant. It's called Anju. It's Korean in Logan Circle area, DuPont. So appreciate you, Ev.
Okay.
And Kobe
says, I would.
Classic.
Kobe says, I would drive Mark Andrews to the BWI myself if we could get DK Metcalf. There we go. I think they already have like drivers over there, but I
think they got quite a few over there, if I'm not mistaken.
I just want to once again reiterate real quick, just because my feelings on Mark are nuanced. If the Ravens stick with him, I don't think that's a bad option. I think he will produce big time, and having him and Likely together as the top 2 tight ends, like, I'm fine with that. I'm saying if he is back, I'm not going to him when the game is on the line, number 1. And number 2, I'm also would be okay moving on and trying a different formula, like in the version of DK Metcalf. But I'm not here to bury Mark, but I'm also not here to like be a savior for him either.
Yeah, you and I are I don't know if I'm on like the Femi level of it, because clearly it has been an issue in January, but I'm of the mindset that Mark's going to figure it out. And to me, here's the funny thing. And I don't know if I'm just going to strike a chord on this with you, but to me, when you say what you've said this many times throughout the last few weeks, that you are not going back to him in do or die moments.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is very unlike you from what I know you, because you're someone that is fearless.
Mm-hmm.
You are fearless.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is an outlier for you because of what he's shown you in a certain sample size in those types of moments. But for me, I don't want to be afraid of going back to 89. If Todd Monken feels like, you know what, this is the best this is the best route concept. This is the best moment. This is the best matchup. And so I just refuse to go down that road with Mark. I think that's living in fear.
I think that's interesting because you do bring that up, but that's exactly why I've lost trust in him. Is because I want a fearless player. And it bothered me. People do not put as much stock into this that I do. It bothered me that he had a fumble and then dropped that pass and didn't speak with the media. That to me is that he can't look ugly in the eye. To me, when he's out there, and he's done this multiple times in the playoffs, I want people that are equally as fearless as me. Now, obviously, I'm not out there. I'm not a football player, and I would get crushed. But I'm like, when you talk about Josina and how she keeps saying, like, there's like a dog in people, and sometimes that's hard to judge. But I feel like I've seen enough of Mark where, yeah, he's got I'm not saying he's like dogless, right? I've seen him get fired up. I've seen what he can do. I've seen him make acrobatic catches, but I've also seen him shrink in big moments. And again, when when your quarterback has to go answer for that moment without you, that's a problem for me. When Zay Flowers as a rookie can go and talk to the media as a rookie and face up to it, and you didn't, that's a problem for me. So the personality characteristic you're pointing out in me is correct. But now I've seen enough of Mark that I now have my doubts that he's as fearless as I think he needs to be. And so that's why we're on different pages, I think, is because at the end of the day, trust is a gut feeling. And it's taken a knock for me with Mark. It's taken a knock for me. It hasn't taken a knock to the point that I don't think he could put up double-digit touchdowns again in a regular season, or that I don't think he could put up, 8 to 900 yards again. I think I haven't lost all that faith. But at this point, when we're talking about getting over the hump in the playoffs, I don't know that Mark is my guy. And that's where we differ.
Yeah, I'm just not willing to go that far, and you are, which is fine.
Yeah.
Sod Blitz 34. DK wants too much, and we will need money for Zay soon. He's already thinking about an extension for Zay Flowers. Another one from Kobe.
And again, sometimes I don't know if Sod's listening to me. Like to me, the 30 million is aside because, well, I'm talking about in 2025, even if you let him go, all you're going to get from Mark is a 4th round comp pick. Or if you trade him now, you get DK Metcalf for a year. It'll cost about $6 million more on today's cap. But even if you don't extend him, you just got DK Metcalf for a year instead of a 2027 4th round comp pick for Mark Andrews. All right, Kobe. Ravens need to be more like the 2000 Pats and trade players like Mark a year early before a year too late. Likely is ready and still on a rookie deal. Having a true X receiver is better than tight end depth.
Appreciate you, Kobe. SMKG. Did you all know that in Lamar's 8 playoff starts, the Ravens have forced 1 takeaway? It was Marcus Peters against the Titans. Did that end up? He took that to the middle of the field, didn't he? I think he took it to the logo in the middle of the field.
Oh, that one.
Team,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
That was insane.
In the
divisional round.
Was that the divisional round? Okay.
Yeah, it was the divisional round of 2020, right? Because Lamar didn't finish in 21, didn't finish in 22, and then it was divisional round 20. Wait a second, no, divisional round 20 was in Buffalo. Wait a second. 2019 was obviously the early exit to Tennessee.
No, they got revenge. Yes, they got revenge the next year in 2020. And so they beat them in the divisional round and then lost to the Bills in the AFC Championship in Buffalo.
Well,
no. It was wild card, then divisional round. They've only been to the AFC Championship once. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so they beat, right. This game that he's referencing was wild card in Tennessee on the road, and then they went and lost to when Lamar was concussed in Buffalo. Anyway, that tangent, that blew my mind. Answer equals pass rush, not DK, which I think is an interesting observation because.
But what did we just say about how you can find a pass rusher?
No, I know.
We're on the same page of how the draft is with them, and there's going to be affordable options for sure.
No, absolutely. I guess what I'm looking at here in particular is just their lack of takeaways when it matters.
Oh, no, that's definitely interesting because we do, and rightfully so, harp on how many turnovers the offense is creating on their own, and that needs to stop. But it's not talked about nearly as enough as the lack of defensive takeaways.
Yeah.
And pass rusher is a big part of that for sure, to SMKG's point.
Yeah. Isaiah
says, God forbid we lose Stanley. We still have Pro Bowler Daniel Baalele.
Love it. Eli Sports Guy. Mark is not a big game guy. Likely is more clutch.
He was more
and another
clutch
one
on the
from
play before. Did you see
another
him catch
one?
that ball?
What?
Did you see Isaiah Likely's catch to even get him in the position for a 2-point conversion?
Likely's a dog.
Did Lamar have to throw a 100% perfect pass for that? No, he did not.
Kobe.
Get it. Kobe says Mark is also a team captain. The expectation is that you would want to speak to the media as a trusted team representative.
It was unlike Mark, and I have a hard time disagreeing with your assessment of how you feel about the no-show. Kobe says, just sharing my yearly bonus with you guys. Now we get it. Okay. #Vault. So Kobe is dumping super chats into this show for weeks now, and it's because of his yearly bonus. Or that just started today. Maybe it dropped in today. I don't know. But Kobe, we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for becoming channel members. We've got over 40. It's growing. It's a great way to support the channel. It's a great way to embrace some of the perks that we now have available to you as Voltrons. That's our nickname. If you missed that earlier in the week, we are now referring to our audience as Voltrons. And we got over 2,800 Voltrons concurrently watching us right now, Tila. Thank you for being with us. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video on your way out. And we got some quick hits coming up here in just a second. One of which was what Sarah referenced during her screen share earlier on in the show, which is great and wholesome, but it's not what we're looking for, which is the Ronnie extension.
Right.
But it is one former Raven, one current Raven, and it just so happens to be a father and a son, Anthony and Keaton Mitchell. Of course, Anthony was a special teams player on the 2000 Super Bowl winning team, and Keaton, of course, just the last couple of years has burst onto the scene as an undrafted rookie out of Coastal Carolina at the running back position.
Yeah. I mean, it is wholesome and it is great. And that's why we put it in here as a quick hit. And I hope that Mitchell is able to have like a resurgent year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And I would still like to get him inside the vault. He keeps saying yes, but then when it comes time to book, got to get him in here.
I was going to say, he likes popping in the live chat just to tease us a little bit and then pop out. But
yeah,
he's a great dude. And here's the week that was, at least up until this point, 119 right now in real time on a Friday afternoon. But the players that have been informed of their release this week that Shefty compiled, of course, Devontae Adams at the top of the list. Plenty others that we've talked about, like Gardner Minshew, Devin Duvernay, Darius Slay.
Hey, you know who we never talked about is Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, just briefly when he came up. Remember, we just briefly touched on it.
Yeah, but I mean, as like an option for the Ravens.
Oh, yeah.
Again, that would be like a Ravens type signing, right? Here I am pushing DK, but it's going to be more like a Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, that'd be an Aguilar type signing, and
maybe
we shouldn't be surprised if it ends up coming to fruition. But Joey Bosa's on this list, Evan Ingram, Jacksonville tight end, James Bradbury
is the backup we talked about.
Oh yeah, so on and so forth. So it's been a busy week, and you can expect it to be insane coming up on Monday as well.
I just always love a good Lamar stat showing how elite he is. The 33rd team likes to do it too because I get a lot from them. It says every quarterback with a passer rating of 100+ on throws beyond the sticks. Okay, last season, Lamar Jackson, number 1, a 132.2 with Joe Burrow. Number 2, but it's a big drop to 116.4. Lamar can throw.
Can never get enough of
Short, deep, whatever you want. Zone, man, rush, no rush.
Yep.
MVP for a reason.
Can never get enough of those stats. You're correct on that. And then a trade came down yesterday at the wide receiver position. Pelissero was all over it. Jacksonville sending Christian Kirk to the Houston Texans. So remember, they lost Stephon Diggs a year ago. Or excuse me, they brought in Stephon Diggs a year ago. Buffalo lost Diggs, but then Diggs went down with an injury. So we'll see what his timeline is. He's set to hit. He's set to hit free agency, correct? Yeah.
Kirk?
Diggs.
Oh, Diggs. Yes.
Yeah,
sorry.
Diggs is set to hit free agency. So all of a sudden you're looking at a room, and I have no idea when Tank Dell, after that horrific injury, I think it was in the postseason. Yeah, or towards the end of the season or in the early postseason, when he'll be back. So they'll be looking at, Christian Kirk is added to the room of Nico Collins, and they got Robert Woods for veteran help there, and John Mechie III is a player for them, but don't know where Diggs is going to end up, and don't know if they plan on keeping him around.
So curious about him. I'm sure there's information out there. I just haven't looked for it. But I'm very curious, A, where he's at in his rehab, B, when he expects to be back, and C, because of that, how much he'd cost.
Yeah.
Because, it's Diggs.
Yep. And by the way, just to clarify, because I just looked it up, Tank Dell, he underwent ACL surgery on Wednesday. So he's done. He's not going to be – he's out for 25. So.
Oh, he's out for 2025.
So now you see why there was a sense of urgency why they traded.
I'm reading the SI article basically saying that this trade for Christian Kirk signals the end of Diggs in Houston.
Okay.
Right? And so he's slated to be a free agent, and he will probably earn a deal worth at least $15 million.
Oof.
Where's his?
One more bite at the apple, huh?
Sure, but like, I don't know. It doesn't say much about where he is in his rehab.
Houston's still going to be hanging around, boy. They got they got Kirk now pairing with Collins. You got Mixon, obviously, who's a pass catching running back in the backfield. You got a really capable tight end in Dalton Schultz. I mean, they've done a lot on CJ's rookie deal, and they continue to. They set him up for success. Now, they didn't last year. Remember what John McClain told us last year about the offensive line?
Yeah.
That's got to get figured out. But he has the skill players around him, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. Texans have always done that for him.
So,
yeah.
So there you have it. That was yesterday's news. And let's get to some more super chats before we get on out of here.
Okay.
John R. hitting us with a $1.99 super sticker. We appreciate you, John. Mel Trap, who loves to troll and is not a Lamar fan, as we know. He writes, Lamar shrinks in the playoffs, too. Let's be fair, Sarah. I don't think he's our – oh, this is funny, though. Our guy implies that Mel – I didn't know Mel was a Ravens fan. I thought he just comes in here to wreak havoc.
No, okay, let's be fair, Mel, because you're definitely not fair against Lamar. You're definitely not. If I'm unfair one way, you are like way unfair the other way. Yes, Lamar Jackson has had his turnovers, for sure his turnovers. And we've talked about it ad nauseum, the first 2 turnovers in the first half. Here's the difference between Lamar and Mark and why I haven't lost faith in Lamar. There's 3 reasons. Number 1, there's not an equivalent of Isaiah Likely waiting behind Lamar Jackson. Okay.
There never will be.
And there never will be. Okay. There is no like, a DK Metcalf that could maybe, take what Mark Andrews did, or an Isaiah Likely who did what Mark Andrews did. There's no option like that. Okay. None. Zip, zero, zilch. That's part of my reason why I'm willing to move on, because I know that there's another tight end coming. Number 2, Lamar Jackson keeps ascending in the playoffs. Mark Andrews has not. Lamar against the Texans last year, and then I don't think it was on Lamar with the game against the AFC, in the AFC Championship game, and then Lamar against the Steelers and exercising those demons 2 games in a row against that team at the end of the regular season and in the playoffs. And then while he did have a bad first half, he played lights out in the second half. And then you know what? Lamar answers to the media. He answers to the media. He's ascending, and there's no equivalent Isaiah Likely behind him. Therefore, we go with Lamar, my 3-time MVP.
This is cracking me up because Mel's never, if memory serves, he's never dropped money in via super chat. So not only is he hitting us with a super chat, but I think he may have actually just exposed himself. Mel, you're referring to our guy, meaning your guy, meaning I think you're actually a Ravens fan. And maybe I'm just late to the party. Maybe I'm late to the party on this, but am I interpreting this correctly, chat? By the way, chat is pure entertainment right now on this Friday afternoon. And he's loving it too. Mel, happy Friday to you, brother.
Yeah, happy
Appreciate
Friday,
the super
Mel.
chat.
And Mel's always here. He's, whether he likes it or not, he's a Voltron.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, Mel, guess what? It's a non-negotiable, bro. You are a Voltron. Leo hitting us with a $10 super chat. Malcolm Kuntz, edge from the Raiders. Noah Brown, wide receiver from the Commanders. Re-sign Ronnie. Restructure Marlon. Cut Mollett. Spread bonuses out. Few other small moves. Then focus on the best player / safety in the draft. Leo is lining up his priorities, Sarah. Good stuff, Leo. Appreciate you. And Dreams.
Dream says, despite the lack of turnovers, the defense has done their job the last 2 playoff games. Offense keeps coming up short.
Evan refers to Mel as a staple. He is a staple of the show, isn't he?
He is a staple.
Oh, man. couple staples right here as well. Kevin and Kai, who are members of our Vault Patreon community, and this is their monthly shout out. So we appreciate you both. Thank you guys for being part of the Vault Patreon community. And if you're interested in doing the same out there this offseason, please do so by visiting patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. You can learn more about what we're offering inside the show notes. And there's a number of things inside the show notes, by the way. Sarah, should we close things out once more with just reminding everybody what the channel tiers look like and how to get there?
Yes, and before you do that, I just want to say how frustrated I am with Google and nobody giving me a good timeline of Stephon Diggs. I had to go all the way back to November. And basically, he went out in week 8, and usually ACL tears take 9 to 12 months. Where he is right now, I don't know. But if it is 12 months, then it's week 8 again, right?
Gotcha.
So that's why nobody's really talking about him, I'm sure.
No worries.
Okay, yes. Let's talk about members.
Yeah, so again, you can, if you want to become a Voltron member, a channel member, which comes with perks, which comes with obviously support of the show, you can click on the link that's included as a pinned comment in the live chat. We also have it in the show notes. But for those of you who want a different option, again, you could just go down to the stream right here, right next to the Vault and our subscription count, right next to, you don't see analytics and edit video, but just press join. And of course, I got to switch over to mine. Stand by. I don't know why I didn't do this in advance. Pause this so nobody hears it. Whoops. Press
I didn't hear
join.
it that time.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Finally, the mute feature is working. But anyway, when you press join, here are the tiers. You've got Voltron at $4.99 a month, which gives you loyalty badges next to your name in the comments and live chat. You got custom emojis that you can choose from. We'll soon have more information on members only live chats, which we're excited about, members only polls when we have certain decision making and other big decisions that loom for the Ravens. And then if you go up a tier to the Voltron Plus level, you got member shout outs, you got photos and status updates internally, what we have going on with on the back end of the business and whatnot. You got priority reply to comments, and then Super Voltron will connect with you on social media. And again, it includes access to perks from every single level prior, which we just outlined for you right there. So, yeah, it's about it for me, Parter.
That is it. Somebody in the chat just said check Cole Jackson's latest tweet. I don't know. What are we referring to here?
Just a cryptic tweet saying that.
Not great.
Yeah. So
I don't know what that means.
We'll just have to see. But
yeah. I'll try to decipher Lamar Jackson's cryptic tweets or Odafeo's, but Cole, we'll just call him up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So more to come across the board. We hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. And free agency begins next week. So need we say any more? There's going to be plenty to discuss. We'll be live at our normal times and be ready for anything.
I'll say this. If we come back here on Monday with our regularly scheduled 12 o'clock vault, it's because they haven't signed Ronnie Stanley to an extension. I could see us doing an emergency pod, right? If Ronnie signed. If we are here at our next show at a regularly scheduled time and he is not signed, Ravens are in trouble.
Look out.
Woo!
Yeah, look out. The week's going to get really interesting really quickly. So more to come on all of that. We will see you, if not before, 12 noon Eastern on Monday, which is exactly when the legal tampering period begins. So get ready. Have some patience with us. It is going to be a multitasking effort. We look forward to all that and more. Thank you for spending part of your Fridays with us. Hope you have an awesome weekend. Like the video on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell. Do all the things. And as always, for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off. We appreciate you for spending some time with us here inside the Vault. We'll talk soon.